to salute our nation's flag. Ready, begin. Good evening. Roll call and declarations of conflicts of interest, please.
Councilmember Abram? Here, and I do have a conflict with 10B and C as I own property within 2 assessment districts. Thank you. Councilmember Bixel?
Here and none.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Here, and I have conflicts on B and C. I have 3 assessment districts, Heirloom 1, Heirloom 3, and Traditions 1.
Thank you. Councilmember Moniz?
Here and none.
Mayor Bublak?
Here, and 10B and C, I have one in, what do I have? Traditions 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of agenda is posted or amended.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. All right, we get to the National Night Out 2024 proclamation. Chief, let's do it.
Just use this one here if you guys can hear me. It's my honor to read this proclamation on behalf of Mayor Bublak and the entire City Council in honor of National Night Out 2024. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 6, 2024, entitled National Night Out. Whereas the 41st annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for the City of Turlock to join forces with thousands of other communities around the country in promoting cooperative police and community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the City of Turlock plays a vital role in assisting the Turlock Police Department through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in the City of Turlock and is supporting National Night Out 2024 locally. And whereas it is essential that all residents of the City of Turlock be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs and the impacts that their participation can have on reducing crime, drugs, and violence in the City of Turlock. And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Now therefore, on behalf of Mayor Amy Bublak and the entire City Council, I do hereby call upon all residents of the City of Turlock to join the City of Turlock and the National Association of Town Watch in supporting the 41st annual National Night Out on August 6th, 2024. If our crime prevention specialist, Melanie Suffolk, would please join me. I'm going to present this to her and this is the fruits of a lot of work that she puts in to make our program very successful, and I'm going to allow her to say a couple words because, again, this is on the back of all of her work.
Cool.
Thank you for the acknowledgement about National Night Out. This is Turlock's 15th year celebrating. We're looking forward to a great evening, and we hope to see you all there.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion, ARPA discussion. Mr. Moreno.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council members. Today's presentation is regarding the American Rescue Plan, ARPA. As we come to the conclusion of some of our deadlines, just really want to kind of give an overview of some of the actions that will be coming forward to make sure we solidify the money and obviously just don't want to give any back, right? So we'll kind of walk through some of the steps in which may take place in the future. So October 31st obligation dates are the topics we'll be talking about. What needs to occur? What does obligate mean? What happens to funds if not obligated? What happens after December 31st, right? How do we take care of the funds and move forward? Estimates over and under, and final spending dates. So December 31st obligation deadline. So under the Treasury guidelines, it explains what the obligations mean. There is different formats in how you do so. It's just not, hey, this is the way we're going to spend it. There is different formats, whether it be in a form of contracts or different things in how you deal with the overall. So just saying this is what we're going to do with it, you can't just transfer it into the general fund. So what does obligation mean? Treasury defines obligation as an order of place in property or services, enter into contracts, subcontracts, or similar transactions that require payment. So you can see it's not straightforward, right? You're just not going to say, we're going to do this with it. There's got to be some documentation around the overall. So Section 17 in the state and local fiscal recovery funds kind of goes into detail on what those guidelines look like and how to get to that process. What does obligation mean? Continuing. An obligation is to, in order to place a property or services, which we just described. This gets into a little more detail what that means, though. In order to place some property or services, a contract. Subcontracts, again, going back into the FAQs kind of gives you a little more meat to what that looks like. The requirement of the federal laws or regulations awarding terms and conditions, recipients become subject to results of receiving and spending. Again, just kind of giving a little bit of meat onto what we need to do. Again, just it's not as simple, straightforward. Most of our obligations have contracts around them. So there's not going to be much obligation that needs to be done. So this part goes into what is not an obligation. So this actually gives you a little cleaner snippet of why it's not as straightforward. You can't just amend a budget, adopt appropriations, an executive order, a resolution doesn't qualify as far as an obligation, and a little more meat to it. The bottom one I highlighted because we talked about in the past as far as at some point you may have to take a step where we quantify the dollar amounts and call it a general fund obligation of revenue loss. But you're not going to just say that, right? So within the rules it says you can do so, but here it says you cannot. But what that means is you actually have to make an obligation. What are you going to do with it, right? You can't just say we're going to utilize it for revenue loss, transfer to the general fund, and move on. We actually can make that statement, but we do have to say what we're going to do with it. What happens after December 31st, 24? So the biggest part's really going to look at, and we'll get into the schedule of what we already obligated, your overs and unders and what does that look like. So you can overstate. Some of those are estimates, right? If you have labor that's moving forward, those are estimates. Maybe you don't fill the position after all. So there are steps you can take if you under obligate, where you can move money to be able to either pull it from another funding source or move it around from another obligation that didn't get utilized that's already part of your obligation sheet. If you overestimate same functionalities, you can actually take the credit, the difference between the delta, and actually move it into an obligation that's already within the report, right? So you can't just start making things up. You can't start hiring people and things of that nature. You got to stay within the boundaries of what you've already obligated to. Final spending date. So there are different transactions within there. Coming out of the final rulings, a lot of it came down to different transactions, some of them around housing and things of that nature. So there are different guidelines around different programs of those natures, subject to like the Title I projects where your spending deadlines are actually September 30 of 26, where your transitional is going to be December 31st of 26. There are some different languages in there as far as how you go over and what that looks like. Exceptions to the rule, maybe you're going into construction, you have a change order and it pushes you out. There are some small deviations and it gives you some guidance on that too as well. So that concludes my presentation. Again, to give you an overview of the steps we're going to be looking at going forward, I will pull up the obligation, just kind of give a general understanding of what that looks like because touchscreen. Okay, so the reason I bring this sheet up is really what we talked about in the presentation. Some of these numbers are very fluid. A big example of that is the subsidy for the trash impacts. Those are estimates going forward utilizing the number of households that are going to be using that dollar amount, right, or that increment. So going forward, you can see we're adjusting that number going through the final years as far as what the number comes, and then we adjust, there's a different number coming through. For example, the fiscal year of 23-24, we budgeted an estimate of 1.1 based off the information we had at the point in time, but we know it's going to come slightly under that. So we've been able to show that we have some flexibility going forward, and also, but you're going to see that you are a fluid document in how those numbers are going to come. Some of these are kind of straightforward in the sense of the way they're contracts. They have set payment schedules, pretty straightforward. If for an example of something was the contract didn't fully conclude, maybe the service was rendered early, whatever it may have been, we'd be able to shift those monies around. So the reason to kind of go through that is really to show that even though we're going through the process and things are obligated, it's still a little bit of fluid going through the years as we conclude and spend the final dollars. Is there any questions?
Questions?
Can you read the bottom line for the public there on how much we have that is unobligated at this point?
Unobligated at this point on reconciling the fiscal year 23-24, 1.9.
Other questions? Okay. Comments? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for bringing this up. It's very timely because we have 5 months left to make good use of that 1.9 million. And I hope that we can see, I hope we can discuss what else we would like to see on this list. With that last bit of money, I think that it would be prudent for us to look at infrastructure things, looking at the interim final rules from the Treasury Department. Water and sewer infrastructure is explicitly called out that we can, use some of this money to offset our many great needs there. You mentioned Title I, and that follows the same rules as all of the CDBG funds that we're using. So we could augment our plans that are supposed to be helping homeowners to fix their roofs and fix their HVACs and things. And so I would like to see something that people can point to say this is where my ARPA money went. And then we've talked about sidewalks. Ms. Director Lohr brought out that there's a lot of sidewalks that are lifted, and I think that if we can in the next 5 months come up with some way to help homeowners have a grant process to fix their sidewalks, I think that would be very beneficial.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, this is time for public participation set aside, and there's 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to address, there are no cards, so hand up, we'll acknowledge you. Justin, come on up.
You guys are a lot busier than this usually, so it's nice that I get to go first this time. Good evening, everyone. Justin Farkas, representing the Office of Assemblyman Juan Alanis, coming to provide a brief legislative report, some of the things that we've been working on. As many of you know already, we have been in summer recess for the month of July, so most of our time has been spent back here in the district, especially the assemblymen's. We held last Tuesday our 5th town hall since being elected. We held that in Ceres at the Ceres Community Center in partnership with Mayor Javier Lopez, Councilwoman Rosalinda Vieira, Turlock Irrigation District, and the Stanislaus Latino Chamber of Commerce. It's a very exciting event that we were able to hold, really get out in our community and talk about the issue of affordability, and we got into a myriad of issues springing from that very large topic of affordability. The Ceres Courier did a fantastic job covering that. If you have the opportunity, I would suggest looking into that article, and you can really see in depth some of the things we discussed. Aside from that, Assemblyman Alanis will also be in attendance at the Veteran Appreciation Breakfast in Ceres, co-sponsored by Mayor Javier Lopez, where he will be doing a brief discussion to some of the veterans in our community. And up in Sacramento, while we are out of session at the moment, we do return in August. However, the governor has still been at work, and we've had the pleasure of sending him our first bill, which was, we're grateful we received his signature on that bill, Assembly Bill 1796, and that bill will require school districts to provide parental notification for courses in career technical education specifically. So helping educate parents and students as to what courses are being offered on campus that can help get them a leg up as they end their academic careers. So that's what we've been working on so far. We're excited to go back in August and hopefully get one of our other 14 bills pushed over to the governor and with his signature. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll close public participation and move on to consent calendar.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes with 5-0. Thank you. Final readings. This is the final, second and final reading of an ordinance for speed limits. I'll open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak? closing the public comment, bring it back. We have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
No.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes. Passes 4-1, dissenting Councilmember Moniz. Public hearing's done. Action items. Start with item 10A and Sims. Director Sims.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. The item before you tonight is asking City Council to approve a resolution that would authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Slate Communications to develop and provide services for a City of Turlock communications plan in the amount of $49,875. The City of Turlock currently does not have a communications plan in place. A City of Turlock communications plan can provide a trajectory for success and serve as a comprehensive roadmap with clear communication goals, communication objectives, communication strategies. A communications plan will identify tools, mechanisms, and procedures that the city can use to effectively communicate information to residents and businesses, as well as engage residents and businesses in two-way dialogue and participation in community and civic affairs. Through the California Association of Public Information Officials, CAPIO, city staff requested qualifications from qualified consultants that specialize in development and implementation of city and government communication plans. The city received 3 qualified proposals. An interview panel of city staff was formed to review the proposals received and interview the consultants. From this process, Slate Communications was selected to develop and implement the City of Turlock Communications Plan. The plan process will entail various activities such as review and establish communication vision and goals, communication tools, SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, social media policy review and assessment, city branding assessment and recommendation, community workshops, one-on-one interviews with council members, staff, external and internal key stakeholders, online surveys, digital asset overview and assessment, target audiences, community stakeholders and groups and strategies to consider, performance measures, as well as crisis communications plan. With us tonight, we have the founder and CEO of Slate Communications, Ms. Kim Newcomer. She'll be providing a brief presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm thinking that was my cue, so I can jump right in. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I did want to take this opportunity to introduce you to Slate and who we are, and maybe talk through that process that you just heard about in a little bit more detail. So I do have a few slides that I'd like to share with you. I promise to keep it quick. As you might have heard, Slate Communications is a marketing and public relations firm that works exclusively with local governments. We actually founded Slate over a decade ago on the crazy idea that informed residents make better communities. My co-founder and I spent many years as in-house communications professionals. We started cut our teeth at the city of Fort Collins here in Colorado. And really what we found is that there's a lot of communities, particularly the size of Turlock, that need just some extra capacity and extra expertise in the area of communications. We always say that the size of the community has nothing to do with the expectations of the community, and that every community really does deserve high quality communications. And the first step to that is really creating a communications plan. We work with communities across the nation, so we're really proud to say that we view our clients as partners and not clients. We've been in-house. We know how important it is to be smart with our dollars, to pay attention to process, to really commit to doing a job right and commit to doing a job that's customized to each community. And that's really how we've built this business. We have between the 12 people at Slate, I don't even want to count how many years of experience, but it's in the triple digits, which is getting a little embarrassing. We really are partnership driven. We all bring this in-house perspective and know how important it is to not only create creative plans, but ones that actually can get done and accomplished. So we like to be both practical and innovative. And then, of course, because we have this perspective nationally, we can bring some of those best practices to the table. But really, what I want to spend most of the time talking about is how we're going to do this. We have a process, and of course, we are government, so we have to make it an acronym. It's epic. It goes through 4 phases: explore, position, implement, and create. And I'll go through each of these quickly. This exploration phase to me is the most important thing. So one of the things that drove me absolutely bonkers when I was in-house is when you would have consultants swoop in and forgive me, but they know everything. And they, it really is just about throwing best practices in front of you and then expecting you to do that. That's not how we operate. We really want to get to know Turlock and the community and the council members and the staff and your stakeholders and your residents, because that's the foundation of a successful plan, is really understanding who we're talking to, where are our connections, and where can we make improvements. You heard some of the ways that we do that: on-site meetings, workshops, surveys, focus groups, just good old-fashioned review and analysis of plans and survey data and all of that kind of stuff. But really what we want to do is customize that to Turlock. And what we'd like to do is spend a few days in your community meeting with people. We can do so much through Zoom like we are tonight, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you. But I don't think anything beats getting into a community and really getting to know it. At the end of this process, we'll present you with a discovery report. This includes that SWOT analysis that you just heard about, and it also just includes a whole bunch of other things. What themes have we seen? What's working well? What's not? This is the foundation for everything that we will build out in the next 3 phases. The next phase is positioning. So this is really where we want to get, I always call it kind of like a framework, right? So we want to better understand, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your vision for a successful communications program? Let's get clear on goals and priorities. We know we can't do everything. I wish we could. Every community wishes we could do more, but we really need to be thoughtful about how we're prioritizing our resources and our capacity. Defining audiences, your diverse community, we need to look at how do we reach each of our audience segments, what's worked in the past and what hasn't. And then some core messaging and brand recommendations. The next phase is this idea of implementation, right? We always say a bus does no good if it's not actually out moving people on the street. So here is when we'll outline strategies and tactics. Measurements is also a really important part of this. How do we know what's working? I think in government it's important to have data-driven measurements, but I think it's also important to have check-ins on what are you hearing? What type of feedback are we getting from our community members? And we'll build those into a systemic process so that we remember to check in on those things. And here's where we'll also add some brand guidelines to help sort of formalize that brand and your presence, and also budget estimates. We have to understand that these things take time and energy, and we want to make sure that we're being realistic about the resources we're putting towards it. Finally, this is where we fine-tune all the details in this create phase. We'll build out timelines, measurement tools, staffing plans, crisis communication resources, and any of those other elements that are really crucial to your success. Sometimes this can include like tools and templates that you can just sort of plug and play moving forward. And sometimes this is, more specific to Turlock and your needs. And we'll figure those out as we go. At the end of the day, you get this beautiful strategic communications plan. And not only we hope is it customized to Turlock and really about your needs, but we also want it to be implementable and valuable to the staff. And that's our goal at the end of the day. With that, I'll stop talking and see if there's any questions I can answer.
Questions? No? All right, open it to public. Anybody wishing? Come up.
Good evening, Mel Treeweiler. Yes, I looked this over and I have to admit that I don't understand everything about it. I think the thing that disturbs me most, because I'm looking out for the citizens, is we need to, well, what's the cost? I mean, I'm not seeing anything that's telling us what the cost of this is going to be. We see $49,000 on the bill, and obviously what you're talking about could cost $2 million from what it sounds like. And it's not explaining how this is going to come out of the budget. I do have some specific questions here that refer to the contract. The contract seems to be rather extensive and covers a lot of things. It would be impossible for me to read everything that's covered in this contract, but I had some questions about a few of them. And And even just, for instance, the deposit was omitted. It says it's going to be later, the proceed after, there will be a deposit done later. I don't understand if the 49,000 is part of that deposit. I have no clue as to how much this will cost our citizens at the end of your term or whatever. I do know that we can get out of this agreement. I was kind of concerned about the confidentiality thing because it looks like you have access to a lot of data that the city will be that we have in our hands as a city, and I'm concerned that we don't want this data to be compromised for our citizens of Turlock, and so I can probably let you start with some of that. I'm not sure. Let me just get here and see. Yeah, I don't see any checks and balances, and specifically, Mr. Sims might tell you the first two well, he would have to answer them. Who were the other two companies that provided the proposals, and what staff members worked on this recommendation? And then the others are listed in line. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay.
Anthony, do you want to take a stab at some of the process questions, and then perhaps I can fill in the blanks?
I'm going to close public comment first, but go ahead now. The cost questions.
Yeah, so within the item, there's a cost estimate with the professional services agreement that outlines when payments will be made. So the first one is phase 1, 18,900, and then phase 2, 7,525, and then phase 3 at the end, 12,250.
And the money's coming out of,
So this is not from the general fund. This is actually from Fund 240, small equipment replacement, contractual services. So this is the funds that we can use for communication efforts. The PEG funds is what we call it. So not the general fund.
and did she have anything else to follow on that?
Oh, did you want to add anything else to that, Kim? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 49,000 plus is your cost to us. Hard stop, no more than that. I mentioned before, we really actually take great pride in trying to keep our services affordable to the place that we can help communities get better communications. So I do want to make sure that you know that is the only investment that we're asking for this effort. I think part of your question is also, what does it cost moving forward? And I think that would be a conversation that we would have to have as a group to better understand, how much are you spending on communications now and what does that look like? And how can we maximize that number before we start adding on a whole bunch of new stuff? We're really aware of budgets are not limitless. And so what we want to do first and foremost is sort of maximize what we're doing, or at least the effort that we're putting forth. And that might mean not doing some things we're doing now so that we can do new things. And that might be just trying to do the things we're doing now better. But I think when you look long-term at what your investment in communications is going to be, that's a council decision and one that you absolutely will be a part of. And I hope that this communications plan gives you some opportunity, perspective, and options of how you want to make those decisions.
There were two other questions, or two other, who else applied?
Right.
So we received proposals from Slate Communications, Trepepi Smith, and JPW Communications.
Thank you. Comments?
Just a question with regard to whatever.
I would need to just also add, information. We would not expect the city to turn over any information to us that is protected or private. In fact, as we reach out to these stakeholders, as we reach out to residents, we would want to use the city's tools and use the city, any work that we do is on behalf of the city. So there would be no expectation of sharing information in a way that would become slates or slates to use moving forward. That would never happen. What we would want to do is just work with city staff to reach out to residents, stakeholders, partners in a way that's most comfortable for the city.
Mayor, might I add to that, this contract's on our professional services template agreement, so that a couple of the questions, the confidentiality, I think was pretty well explained. I mean, that's what we have in all our contracts. And the deposit, section 6.2 was intentionally omitted. There really isn't a deposit. It's, as Anthony laid it out, how the payments go. And the 6.1, the contract's for a not to exceed amount like we normally do.
Correct. Thank you.
Just for a point of clarification, you said the fund that it comes out of is not the general fund, it's another box, right?
Okay.
Correct.
But what funds that box? Just for clarification.
So Fund 240, what we were talking about is actually the funding source. These PEG funds, these are actually franchise fees that comes from the cable company. These, although they are franchise fees, they are not discretionary. They have to be used in a certain purpose. So we isolate them out of the general fund, and they are built for more of communication coming into from the council to the public and things of that nature. So it has a specific use, is why it's isolated in that sense of the way, and that's why it fits within the description of this overall. So he met with me to confirm that it does.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you both. All right, moving on to the technical stuff, and just before we started, I misspoke.
Thank you, Kim.
Traditions 5, not traditions 2 is mine, so I paid no attention to that, sorry. So, moving forward, who's speaking to this?
It's Moreno, isn't it?
Yeah. Hold on, where's this over to? Help me out, what do you say?
I don't know. Is there a question?
Sure.
We have conflicts, so he's
Yeah.
asking how are we handling this, since if you have a conflict, you can't be up.
Right,
I just want to make sure.
We're on 10B.
right,
Yeah.
but there's B and C are both conflicts for us,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
you, not you.
So.
That's me thinking, hang
I
on.
just want to make sure before I start.
So we listened to the
I
whole
think if you
presentation.
give an informational briefing, and then we'll handle the conflict at the vote.
Sure.
Unless if you get into items like what different districts are actually paying and stuff, we would probably have to excuse the members.
Yeah, which we would not. We talk about a consolidated amount. We don't go into individual details in that sense of the way.
No, we have to each step back. Okay,
Okay,
proceed, thank you.
thank you. So the item we're referring to today is an annual process in which we call the filing of the engineer's report. There are 3 steps to the process, two of which you will see tonight. One is called the initiation, the next one is the intent, and then the public hearing. It's really just going through a formal process. One is saying, council, go ahead and move forward. The next one's saying, here it is. And the last one is just ratified until we can file it to the county. So annually with these assessment districts, we collect funds to do services within those districts themselves. Each district is built a little different, sizes and structures overall, services and things of those natures. Primarily, you'll see lighting, landscaping, and street components as well. Most of these districts are on the newer ends of the city. That's primarily because these acts in which we utilize these services and do these things didn't come into fruition until later in the years of the late to mid 80s. And then they kind of bulked up in the 90s overall. So the annual filing for this year is going to be about 3.6 million. This is the first step of the process. Again, the next one is the second part, but same primary overall information. We do have quite a few assessment districts, just over 200. Some of them are active, some are just some that we formed and we collect deposits where there is no activity at this point in time. Is there any questions?
Questions? None? Okay, open to public. Anyone wishing to speak?
I'm not sure if this is going to produce a problem, but I was really happy to see Countryside being repaired. So that was an industrial assessment district, or how do you judge Countryside? Because I don't understand how different assessment districts and how they come about, because we have over 100 of them now.
Over 200.
Over 200. Okay, just kind of explain that, because I noticed there was a lot of good work done in the northern part of the city, and that's fabulous. Now, Pedros Road would not be an assessment district. That was a complete rebuild of the road, correct? And you can answer that for me also. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comment and come back to Pedro's is not. an assessment.
Correct. Pedris, I think, was just an overall street roads project. So it had different components, and I think they were doing multiple sections different ways, so I can't really speak to the full extent of it. I know they were pitting mediums too as well, I think. But it's not a funding source in which this occurred. The other one was industrial versus residential. When the components come in is whether they're residential or industrial, we actually look at what the boundaries, what the services are going to be providing, whether it's streets, landscape, and what it is. That is populated what we call through the engineer's estimate, and that calculates how it is. So they treat them different, but the same as well. It's just really the services that are going to be provided. That is the component in which we look at.
All right, comments? All right, how are we gonna do this?
I would suggest the mayor first recuse herself and state again that you have a conflict because you own land, and if you want to name the district or not,
Certainly.
either way is fine.
Okay.
And then you'll step down and step out of the room.
Okay.
And the vice mayor will do the vote on that one assessment district.
Can you do 5? You don't have something in 5? Okay, all right. I have a conflict of interest on Traditions 5, so I will be recusing myself.
Musical chairs.
And so the motion would be to take the action called for on Traditions 5 solely.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram? Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor sorry, Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Next, we would recommend that Vice Mayor Franco step down and leave the room. So here a motion would be in order to take the call for action on Heirloom 1, Heirloom 3, and Traditions 1.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 4 and 1 abstain.
And I'll recuse myself for 2 assessment districts.
Which ones? Got 'em? Okay.
You're gonna say yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, again, I probably should have told the council, all these are because they own property in the assessment district, so that's the point here. And so in this case, a motion would be in order, they all have such nice names, I must say, would be in order to take the call for action on Legends 4 and Legends North 3.
Second.
Second.
Third.
All right, we'll call the roll, please.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 4-0. All right.
And then now would be on all the remaining districts.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. All right, okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you.
And now that you know what to do on the next agenda item, because these have to be done in order, you get to repeat the process.
All right.
And I'm not going to help, so.
Wow. He's fired. All right, Mr. Marino, go ahead.
So the next item is the next step in the process. Again, there is a 3-prong approach to the whole thing. 2 of them are tonight. This is the secondary one. The last one will be on the next meeting, which will finalize the report. Same information just referred to you, so I'll open it back up to the council.
Okay, open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Closing public comment, bring it back. I will be recusing myself because I have property on Traditions 5.
And doesn't leave that in there. Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
For Traditions
For
5,
Traditions 5.
take the call for it action, call for it. Action call for it.
First and second, clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will be recusing myself because I have a conflict of interest in Heirlooms 1, Heirlooms 2, and Traditions 1.
We have it as heirloom 3.
1, 3, I'm sorry. Heirlooms 1, Heirlooms 3, and Traditions 1.
Move to approve.
Wait.
Sorry.
Now a motion would be in order to
Move to approve.
take, okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Get her done, just get her done.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 4 with 1 abstaining. Final.
And I shall recuse myself because I have a conflict in Legends 4 and Legends North 4? Is that what they said?
Legends North 3.
Oh,
No,
you said you weren't
Legends
helping. You're
North 3,
lying.
thank you.
Sheesh.
Legends 4 and
Well, I think I helped
Okay.
Vice Mayor Franco.
You did.
Nobody helped me.
Just want to be
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, move to approve Legends 4 and Legends North 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes with 4, 1 abstaining. Final. All remaining, please.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Moreno. That was
That was musical chairs.
Now, it's warmed up in here, so let's talk about the ACs.
Oh, please, Mr. Fisher, tell us about the AC.
Good evening, Mayor Bublak and members of council. The action before you tonight is determining the need to continue actions taken by the city manager in response to an emergency created by an inoperative computer room, air conditioning unit at the public safety facility. Finding the emergency will not permit any delay resulting from competitive bid process, and additionally, finding that the action exempt from CEQA pursuant to the guidelines 15302. Public safety facility server room is equipped with 2 computer room air conditioning units. We call them crack units. Staff was made aware that one of the units was inoperable, worked with a contractor to plan the needed repairs. Staff requested a quote for the repairs. Contractor was unable to provide a quote, notifying staff that parts were no longer available because the manufacturer of the unit's data air had gone out of business the year prior unexpectedly. Staff began working on a contingency plan and a strategy for replacement of the units. And we had not a good situation, and on the week of July 8th, the remaining working unit failed, prompting declaration of emergency. Staff utilized the contingency plan to remain operational as necessary items were stripped from the inoperable unit to restore functionality to the one unit. The remaining unit has a high probability of failure, and long-term cooling with portable units is not recommended just because of the sensitive equipment in that room. So staff is recommending the approval to continue the emergency declaration in this instance.
Questions? All right, we'll open to the public. Anyone wishing to speak?
So we have another emergency. Seems like a few years ago, we had to spend $3 million or something like that to repair a radio for the police. And it seems like we have these things happening at continuous, regular happening. And my question is, do we have anything where anybody has any kind of a sheet with pieces there, I mean, other than police cars and fire trucks and major things, of saying we need to replace or repair certain items on a certain date? The second thing that goes along with this, and goes along with the sales tax we had asked for a couple years ago, was people put it in there and said we want monies in our unrestricted reserve fund to pay for these emergencies. And it seems to me that our reserves are no higher than it was 2 years ago. And it doesn't seem to me like we have any kind of replacement or repair or inspection or something so that we don't have these continual emergencies. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back. Mr. Fisher, would you?
Sure. In response to the question about the asset replacement list, the air conditioning units are on fact on an asset replacement list. There's 146 units that the city manages at any given time. They're all different. They're all different applications, and they're all different ages. There's about 62 of them that are on the list, and as of just recently, I think 6 months ago, we closed 15 of them were replaced. So unfortunately, this one wasn't on the list. It wasn't one of the oldest units that we had. And had we had known that the manufacturer had abruptly closed business without any notification to anybody, we would have moved that up on the priority list for certain. And as far as the reserve, the question about the reserves, I don't know that I can answer that adequately. Maybe Isaac can help me out on that one. Sure. The reserves referred to, it sounds like it's about Measure A. If you look at my reports that are given on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, you can see the reserves from both components, whether it be the roads program or the general program, have drastically increased. Obviously, this tax has only been a couple of years old, and we really held on to that money in the beginning, so we have great reserves overall. Today's action is really to get the project going. You're not identifying a funding source, but it is my process to come back and look for funding sources. And the general Measure A component reserves is where we'll be looking to request that. So we'll be having that conversation at a later date. Today's actions, again, to get us moving forward so that we can figure out really what do we need, how much, right? We don't want to come preliminary with a number that is not accurate, then got to come back again. So we're going to solidify that and come back for a formal action.
Any other questions or comments?
Director Fisher, I'm just hoping that you can clarify a little bit more of what you said in your beginning statement that, this was the unfortunate, it seems like this is a series of unfortunate events, right? So the first one, the city found that it went down through the normal 6-month process to look at everything, right?
Correct. It was found under a PM process. Those units will receive 2 inspections a year, and then additionally, quarterly, they'll see a filter replacement and a general inspection of the coils and coil clean.
And we had a backup at that time, right? Because there's 2 units. And at that February timeline, that's when we realized they couldn't fix them anymore, right?
Yes, we do have a backup, so it's a redundant standard. Unfortunately, in the case where the one had failed, we had a failure of a control unit that controlled both compressors. So that unit was down for an electrical component. It's very difficult to discern when electrical components were failed. You can obviously replace them proactively, but it's incredibly costly and it's not an efficient use. When they're readily available, if the parts were readily available, we wouldn't be here talking about an emergency.
And so staff's been working on this since they knew that the backup was a problem, and then lo and behold, July, the backup has a problem. Right?
Yeah, staff immediately worked on a contingency plan and had backup. Portable ACUs, not an ideal, but they had them in place should another issue come into play.
And just, it's in the staff report, and I know we all know it, but for the public that may not have read the staff reports, can you give us a little bit more detail on what these are cooling and why it's such a big deal if they are not operational?
Sure. These are cooling the computer or the server room, so all of your 911 radio communications and all that stuff is in there. So generally, they generate a lot of heat depending on their use, and we measure that by ambient air temperature. And we say that we try to keep it below like 90, and this is the ASHRAE standard. When you get above 90, it's important to note that the individual component may be well above 90. And for every 50 degrees Fahrenheit that you increase the temperature of an electronic component, you cut its lifespan in half. So it's really important, the ambient air temperature is really a symptom of how well we're rejecting heat, and how well we're taking care of the equipment. Now, we had other things in there like portable AC units. Pulls the humidity down too far, you could have static electricity problems, or if you can't control the humidity too high, you have corrosion issues, and you won't see them right away. You'll see them years down the line.
Any other questions? All right, just as a comment, we just had another one go out here today, and that one's not as old either, correct? I mean, it's 110 degrees today, so can we anticipate the heat being?
Heat certainly plays a factor in the overall operation. Obviously, they're meant to be on rooftops and whatnot, but as equipment ages, and heat can certainly ruin or cause issues with electronic components. I'm not sure exactly what the failure on that one was. I will get a report back, but yeah.
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I was in the police department a couple weeks ago, and I walked by the server room, and it was, just to put it into perspective, the heat was blowing so hard, and it was so hot, I asked who turned the heater on, and that's when I got told about the problem, so definitely
Yeah.
emergency.
And, and we don't try to maintain those rooms at a comfortable
Correct.
temperature, we try to maintain them below 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
And I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please. There are no thirds.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes with 5-0. Thank you, Director Fisher. City managers' reports.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. Council items for future consideration. I would like just two things. One is, we keep talking about the waffle sign. I think that it's time for us to look at trying to get to the 19th, 20th century, maybe, about how we utilize lights and signage. Maybe send that to the Planning Commission and start looking at ways to utilize what everybody else is doing, every TUSD, all these places. And with that in mind, also having interactive screen for downstairs, and then outside. We're taking tape and putting up our agenda packets, and I think we can do better.
I did have one.
Go ahead.
Just checking on my spreadsheet.
We're working on it, ma'am.
Yes.
And if, Chief Hedden, if we could get a briefing, please, on what we're really gonna do with the grants past litigation and what the police department's real plan is, we'd really like to know, because I have a lot of questions.
Sounds like you're busy there, George. And then comments?
Well, I would like to, for future consideration, I mean, Councilmember Abram brought up briefly about ARPA funds. I mean, we've got $1.6 million, we've got to figure out something to do with it quickly. And we don't seem to ever have a discussion about it. So I'd like to see that come up again.
Comments?
Looking forward to National Night Out. Hope to see everyone again. It's a wonderful time to get to know your neighbors, to get to talk about the security and safety of your neighborhoods, how to watch out for your neighbors, what to look for in your neighborhoods. Great time just to meet them and have a little bit of dinner with them and enjoy watching the kids play. And this year we get to see all of the activity that's going on at Columbia Pool. So make sure you come out on National Night Out and enjoy yourselves.
Anything else? And thank you to all the staff that helped set up and take down State of Turlock. I appreciate their efforts. We have a closed session, ma'am?
Yes, closed session tonight. Item 14A, conference with labor negotiators, California Government Code, Section 54957.6, subsection A. Agency designated representative, city manager, deputy city manager Sarah Eddy, employee organizations, Turlock Associated Police Officers, Turlock City Employees Association, Turlock Firefighters Association, Local 2434, Turlock Management Association, Public Safety, Turlock Management and Confidential Employees. Closed session item 14B is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, California Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 2, potential cases 3.
All right, and we will report out should there be anything. Man, it's super hot in there. But George was talking a lot too. We good? All right, we are reporting out. There is nothing to report. Have a good evening.